So I want to continue talking about digital brand metamorphosis and empire evolution expression and also expert level optimization, because these are three critical areas to focus on when trying to take what you do as a brand and a business to the next level. And something that I want to address before going on to talk about those three areas is the simple fact that most aren't aware that we've had a marketplace metamorphosis to take place. And without that realization of the marketplace metamorphosis, what's happening is that new structures and new frameworks have come in from a very evolutionary standpoint. And with the lack of wisdom and knowledge around that, that means that brands and empires have not undergone their own metamorphosis or their evolutionary edge for empire expression to come out so that their expert level can be, operating in that optimum type of experience, which is the optimization, the optimizing, right? So with that lack of awareness, there's not just under preparedness, there's not the accurate preparation or planning to be properly positioned, especially from a holistic profitable vantage point for impact and income. So now I want to go back to talking a little bit about digital brand metamorphosis. And in a previous video, I just alluded to how it's not enough for a brand to actually undergo metamorphosis, and even from the evolutionary standpoint, because the digital space is the dominating force, you have to be able to make sure that you have a digital metamorphosis and not just a digital transformation, okay? So I'm going to talk a little bit about how metamorphosis or even transformation has had to undergo its own kind of makeover to be more in an evolutionary standpoint or be demonstrated in that representation. All right, because metaphorically, most would like to leverage the caterpillar to the butterfly is a transformational kind of analogy, but it's actually a very evolutionary analogy because it becomes something different. And though transformation and evolution can be kind of synonymously used in a sense, but under the new creation order, as it relates to the metamorphosis of the marketplace, they come with two different distinctions in vibration and actually form, okay? So the transformation basically goes to the tadpole and the frog type of analogy, where it is something that is really just becoming a bigger version of what it was. And yet it's transforming just like a girl transforms in a sense to a woman, a boy to a man. But it still is the actual same being. It's just growing, right? Evolution takes on a different format because it becomes something different that can't actually go back to being something that it was previously. And I know people are saying, well, kind of transformation, is the same thing. You transform, you can't go back into something else. Well, sometimes transformation has kind of a different default level in a sense, where people actually, they can have transformation, let's say of patterns, and they've undergone some growth or different things, but they actually can default and revert back to doing some of the old patterns. Evolution is different because it becomes something different and takes on a different nature that actually does not have the same characteristics to be able to play out the same way as before. Okay, so going back to what I was saying about the tadpole and the frog, and even though it grows up and has some different characteristics of how that plays out, but it's still within that same structure. It's just a bigger version. Where with the caterpillar to the butterfly, it becomes a completely different entity. So it not only transforms, it becomes a new creation in an evolved state. It breaks down and becomes unformed so that it can then be reformatted to become a different entity of expression. So as this relates to brands and empires undergoing kind of that same process, now we have to look at this from the digital standpoint. And most are going to be saying, well, the digital space online business has been going on for so long, and these different processes have been taking, their different shapes and forms throughout the years. Yeah, that's true. Here's been the problem with that. Everything has become new and improved, expanded in the same context or container, so to speak, but not actually has undergone a metamorphosis to become something different, okay? So when we're looking at the digital space and the evolution within the digital space, even that has been kind of limited in terms of the progression. So which means before you can even get to an evolution, there has to actually have been a metamorphosis to take place, not just transformation and growth, not just expandedness around innovation in a sense. It has to have become something new, something completely different. And even what we've seen throughout the years of things becoming different, again, it's been more under a new and improved. But there now has to undergo this breakdown and decomposing in a way of the old formats and even the current formats that have yielded transformation and growth and different things. You're going to see in the upcoming days that there's going to be something completely different happening. And now the realization is that you'll see that bigger caterpillars have been produced, not actual butterflies. No. Not actual metamorphosis. But, as I mentioned, that's going to be taking place. So, let me not go too far down the rabbit hole with that, and let me go back real quick to the digital branding metamorphosis, right? And taking on a different format. Now, something I've been teaching for years, and this is my branded and trademarked teaching in terms of a brand expression versus just a traditional branding. When they talk about branding, there's a traditional format around that. I actually don't teach that. I use components of it, different elements or so, but even that will be under an evolutionary standpoint in a new creation format. But I've been teaching my coined training for years on brand expression and empire expression because that has an evolutionary edge. And having that evolutionary edge means it has undergone a metamorphosis that actually brings forth the second coming and the third coming of a brand. Okay? So this isn't, it's new and improved and it's expanded in a certain way. No, it is taking on a completely different nature and vibration of an entity and of an expression. So, in the digital space, that same process has to be underway, and it actually is. And most aren't even prepared that that type of expansion is actually occurring, okay? So, not focusing on the digital transformation aspect, but the digital metamorphosis. There are things that are going to start to break down, okay? And decompose, as I mentioned, so that the old information of that branding and even the old information of what is new and improved, it breaks down because it's going to be reformatted to become something completely different. And this is going to be brands that are going to show up in more multifunctional and cross-functional ways of expression. That's, what I've been teaching for years. And my branding represents that on so many different levels. But in the digital space, again, we are in the online space. So you have to be able to bring that energy to the online space, but now see this play out in how the digital aspect is taking place. All right. So I don't need to actually go too far down. I have trainings and different things, around this. But something I do want to shift gears to quickly is coming to the evolutionary aspect. Because when we think about a business, we think about an empire. Empires have representations of a brand. There has to have been a brand first to be established, in a sense, before an empire or business can come into its full expression, right? So when a brand goes through that metamorphosis, and then in the digital space and bringing forth their second coming and third coming vibration, in the digital space, then we can look at the overall, what has this become? What did the cocoon process, the branding cocoon, business cocoon process, what did that actually develop? And it's going to produce the evolutionary edge or expression of that empire. So something that I do want to bring out is what you won't see, so to speak, is an old identity of that brand being married with a newer expression of the empire, all right? I always tell people when taking them through the branding metamorphosis aspect is that the journey is not the butterfly, okay? The journey is not the butterfly. And you don't brand yourself to actually go and take that journey, in a sense, to those who have not come to a certain point. And what I mean by that, in my communications metamorphosis, I teach write for caterpillars, speak to butterflies, all right? So most of the time in the traditional branding, when brands come through their transformation or so, they brand themselves based on what the journey was and then try to teach that to others. I tell people, no, your journey is what produced the content. The cocoon produces the content. That's where you need to write books, create different types of curriculums, or create some different type of audio products or so. That is what is given to those who need the journey. When you've come through the journey, you're actually not supposed to be going back and actually teaching that. Not in the metamorphosis. You are not supposed to be building a brand based on that. When a butterfly launches from its cocoon, it goes on to live a butterfly life. It goes on to do, that next part of the journey. And that's where your juncture starts in terms of what is emerging. That's why when you're actually coming through a particular process, you need to already be focused on your emerging tribe, not, okay, I've come through this and who I'm going to bring this to. It's like, no, actually, when you're going through the journey, you should actually be teaching people then and taking people through that process with you as you are coming through. It's an exploration type of experience, right? And then even when you come out of it, can you still do some teachings around that and everything? Yes, that needs to be a short window of time. You don't need to build a brand based on that. And that's actually what's been happening. People, I've done this, so now let me show you how to do X, Y, and Z. No, that isn't a product. You should be on to the next thing that brings you above the evolutionary edge, all right? So that is what the empire representation will be more like in its evolutionary state. And even that is at the genesis, okay? So if you don't have the metamorphosis and you don't have the evolution, you cannot have the full potential of optimization. That's what I teach in my new creation, empire format and branding format, branding metamorphosis, is that you have to be metamorphosized, evolutionized, to be fully optimized, right? And in the digital space, as we are dealing more with the terminologies and sense of SEO, search engine optimization, I have a different metaphor or analogy in the sense, for that acronym, I should say. But, and I'll talk about that in another video, and I've done videos, around that too. But not to digress too far, is that you have to now, in the digital space, be optimizing in SEO, not just as, okay, yes, we can find you this way. No, it has to be in a metamorphosized, evolutionized way. Should not be able to look at your branding from 2 years ago and it still is demonstrating that same thing. Not because of where we are in evolution and this marketplace metamorphosis taking place. Yeah, you're going to have become something completely different. And guess what? That's not happening. That's not what's been happening. When people present something different, it's more so in kind of a rebranding format and so, but you can still tell there hasn't actually been a metamorphosis. There's been growth. There's been transformation. There's been expansion. There's been some level of evolution. but it's been primarily in a very one-dimensional type of way. Again, the new and improved version. Not going to work moving forward, all right? So, without going into too much, because I do extensive trainings, around this, I'm going to shift gears to talk a little bit about the expert optimization. So, going back to what I said in terms of if a brand has not been metamorphosized, it hasn't been evolutionized, then it cannot be fully optimized. Now, listen to what I said. It cannot be fully optimized, all right? I'm not saying that there's no optimization going on, but it cannot be fully optimized to the maximum potential. And again, rules of engagement change when there has been a marketplace metamorphosis. So I don't care what expert comes and say, well, no, that's not true because da 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 da. They don't have a clue about metamorphosis of a marketplace. So they can only just base things off of previous results, even their current results. But guess what? That is going to break down. It's going to start decomposing. And most are going to be baffled, like, what in the world is going on here? Yeah, because they're going to realize, see, you're not actually a butterfly. You're just a larger caterpillar. Yeah. And I don't say that to be sarcastic. Well, kind of, yeah. not fully, okay? Because I'm being serious here because I want to help people. But you do sometimes have to face the hard realities and the realization. This is why, for most who follow certain experts and different things, their brandings and businesses really aren't going to the next level. What happens is that there's the initiation or the activation in a sense of, something new I need to try. And it feels good, like some results are building and some new formats are going to be put in and everything. And then ultimately, it doesn't really come to fruition. And if it does, it doesn't have anything that's long-standing. So why is that, right? Because there's newer marketplace dynamics that are taking place. As more of those are unfolding, it's breaking down the old, which means that you can get very little to no results from what is actually being, put out there. And the ones who have actually been getting results is because they already have momentum in some other area that has helped them to be able to sort of maximize some of the information that's been sharing. But let me also tell you that too is going to be short-lived, okay? Going to be short-lived. So the optimization aspect that comes in at this point is that it's almost like it's very vibrational in a sense. The marketplace is only going to recognize fully emerged evolutionary brands and empires that have undergone the metamorphosis. So that's where the optimization vibration is going to be at. So the other stuff that may be working now and have some optimization going, again, just as Jesus says, I come like a thief in the night, that marketplace dynamics does do. It comes in, and even though it's been broadcasting, this is some things that are going to be happening, but because most have been asleep and they're unaware of any of these things, right? When it hits, then it's like, whoa, what happened? The rug's been pulled from under me. Not really. It's just that you've been asleep and you haven't been awakened to what's going to be, emerging to change the dynamics. So, with that being said, I have extensive trainings around this, but I think before even bringing people into that grander context, there are some trainings that you can avail yourself to in terms of helping to level up in the digital branding metamorphosis aspect to really come into that evolutionary empire and expert authority in it, all right? So you can avail yourself. I have links below to different training bundles that will help you to prepare and actually start the process. And I would consider those to be really a fundamental for phase 1. When you've actually been through those types of trainings, then you will be ready and prepared for the next level of trainings that I provide in signature masterminds and VIP intensives, but you're going to need the understanding in terms of things that are in the training bundles with myself and other, other experts too, who are in the more metamorphosized, evolutionized, optimized, experience. And then also there's some publications, below, as well. So I just wanted to just talk briefly, about this because it's really important. And so that as you do see different dynamics happening, I don't want you to be too alarmed. You do need to be alarmed in terms of there are things you're going to have to do, and you're going to have to accelerate your experience so that you aren't caught in that middle before the full metamorphosis takes place of the marketplace. You want to accelerate yourself so that you can be in the dynamics of the shifting, okay? And not get caught in the gap or the middle that where that decomposing happens is that if you don't actually form into something else, that's it. You're done, all right? The bottom line. Okay. So I have, like I said, a variety of different things, but what I'm going to show you in the comments and in the description is actually, I believe, where you need to start. But also you can follow my branding in different levels and different dynamics, so you can start syncing yourself up, at least vibrationally for sure, as you are learning. And then we can catapult your success, not with a quantum leap, but with an evolutionary leap, okay? An evolutionary catapult is what I call it. And then we can look at the full optimization from an Illuminate branding and empire standpoint. So yeah, avail yourself to what's in the description, and I look forward to being back with you soon.